we're going to take a look at how to use the feathered edges in the Generations embroidery software. I have several different fill types open on my screen. The first one is a complex fill. This is satin, this is an arc, and this is a radial fill. So let's look at how the feathered edge is applied to each one. I'm going to select the complex fill first, and I select that with a right click. And I'm going to change my stitch direction so that we're going straight up and down. So now my stitch direction is changed, and let's go into our settings. In our settings, you can see it says complex fill, and there's the option to use the feather stitch. I just place a check mark next to that, and the edit button becomes active. So let's click on the edit button, and I'm going to apply only to side A. And we'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. Then I just say OK, and I can click on the apply button to preview it. So you can see what side A and what side B is with the complex fill. In the complex fill, side A is the side that is away from the little green knob on your stitch direction wand. And here's the feathered edge that's been applied. Let's go back into Edit, and I can select side B as well. And on either side, I can enable a pattern. Once I enable a pattern, my stitch settings, such as right here for the positive and negative settings, are now controlled pretty much by this pattern. You can see most of these patterns, if you scroll through, do not have a negative setting. This one has a negative setting, but the bulk of these are basically positive settings. So at this point, the negative setting here has no effect, but the positive setting will, and I'm going to increase that even more so you can see what's going on. And this is the pattern that I've selected for side A only. I'm going to enable side B, and I'm going to enable a pattern as well, and we'll just pick a slightly different pattern. And I'm going to make it just as large. Let's go ahead and say OK and apply it. Okay, so here's our first pattern. There's our second pattern. So this is side A, away from the green ball, and this is side B. The pattern extends out beyond the outline for positive settings. For negative settings, it's going to extend inside of the outline. See the negative setting in here? So that is how you apply your feathered edge to a complex fill. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Now this is a satin fill. When I go into my settings, you can see that it says satin. And because it was so large, I went ahead and just applied a fill type to it. But I'm going to go ahead and say use my feathered edge. And I'm going to click on Edit again. And you can see side A is going to be highlighted in green, and side B is highlighted in blue for satin areas. So it's the same, same setting here. I can enable my patterns, and I can change, in this case I would have to change the positive because the negative will have no effect. And, that's going to be side A up here. And then, of course, side B would be the blue side. And there's, my blue side with the default setting, or my B side with the default setting. All right, so that is how you know A and B for each of these fills. Now, this is an arc fill. In the arc fill, I can apply a feathered edge. I just come down here and click on Use Feathered Edge and Edit. And it's a little bit harder to determine side A and side B. So we're going to go ahead and select side A. And let's go ahead and apply it and see where side A ends up. And you can see side A kind of curves around. Although the stitches are going straight out, it's still following this curve. And as I move this point, that feathering is going to change as well. So it's attempting to follow the curve of an arc fill. And the same thing with side B. Side B is going to attempt to follow the curve. So there's side A and side B. Now, generally when you're using the feather, you wouldn't enable this to 10. You might say 5 to 7. We'll go ahead and say 5. And I'm going to enable a pattern. And we'll just pick, like a little subtle pattern. Maybe this one. We can enable this on both sides. And for, the arc fill, this is going to behave a little bit differently. It's going to kind of blend those sides together a little bit better than it does for the other two fills, which are, pretty distinct sides. Okay, so there's your arc fill. And the last thing we're going to look at right in this section of the video is going to be the radial fill. And the radial fill is, really kind of interesting because technically you have a hole in the center here. So when I go to the radial fill and I go to use a feathered edge, my positive and negatives are going to behave quite differently. We'll start with the positives and then we're going to look at what happens when this is a little more open in the center. So enabling my pattern on side A, we'll make this larger so you can see it, means that that's going to go out on the outside. Side B is this inside section, which would just make your stitching a little more dense. But side B can come into play when we're using something that's a little more open for the radial fill. We're going to take a look at how to apply these fills now, especially the radial fill and the complex fill when you have an open area.